For those who are unfamiliar, this is Destiny on the right. He's a streamer. He's got somewhere around 600K subbies. Dude on the left is a supposed and alleged legal expert, and they're about to talk about Andrew Tate's situation, being in jail the way he is. But they're actually about to have a debate with this woman right here and each other. This woman goes by Just Pearly Things. She calls herself Pearl, I guess. She is a femcel, an incel that's female, and she is absolutely nutty, dude. She believes all the same stuff Andrew Tate does, to a disturbing and weird degree. This is actually part 4. If you haven't seen the others, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. This supposed legal expert is about to claim that Andrew Tate's international rights are being violated because he isn't being given access to his lawyer. Except he is. Tate hired a lawyer from the U.S. named Tina Vandian. They're apparently upset that she isn't qualified to practice law in a foreign country. Let's watch. And while we do, we're going to play some Final Fantasy VII. It'll be something to watch in the background, right?
But and that's why they've got Tina Glandian in the fray now.
You keep bringing up Tina. She's not their lawyer, though, right? Isn't she just their U.S. lawyer? She's not even the one that's allowed inside the jail. So if they were serious about getting somebody to challenge this on like an international rights stage, is she bringing an international case forward? Like, I thought that she was just the U.S. representative they have. She's not part of the Romanian legal team.
So I think you just hit onto a very important point. So Tina Glandian can't represent them inside the Romanian court, but she can represent them in the international stage. So yeah, if this went further into the international stage, she would be able to represent them. And based on that, she should be allowed to see them. So again, that's another contravention.
I think Tina Vandian, the person that they mentioned just a second ago, their U.S. representative, if you will. I could be wrong. I think she represented some really, really high-profile famous people in recent years. I forget exactly who it was that she represented, but it was somebody really big. And she's not even representing them, honestly, so I don't know why they're bothering with this, but okay.
Don't you think that's unacceptable?
Like, why is Tate even wasting his money, like, paying her to be his lawyer or whatever? I don't know. It's just weird.
That a lawyer who we are saying there's a possibility that these articles are being contravened is not allowed to see her clients to be able to mount and understand their position and their arguments and then mount that defense in the international court. Don't you think that is an actual violation of you?
No, I've never heard.
No, it's not. So they're asking why are they not allowing her in to see her client? She can't operate in certain districts. Like, if you pass the bar exam in New York City, you can only practice law in certain areas. You can't practice law just anywhere. You have to practice within areas you're allowed to practice in. And if you want to operate out of a different area, like a different court system or whatever, you have to, like, apply for the right to work within this, and you have to have, like, a mentor that'll go in and work with you and all kinds of stuff. It's very complicated to work within a foreign legal system, not just on an international stage, but even state to state. It's difficult. Law is complicated. Seriously. You guys have no idea how complicated it is unless you're involved in this to some degree. But, oh my God, I didn't know how complex it was until my wife started going to law school and stuff.
Heard of that if I get arrested here in London for doing something, that I can necessarily demand a U.S. lawyer that flies over to here and has rights to access me in prison or in anything else. I've never heard that as international law before. That's a requirement.
No. You having access to your legal counsel is an international law.
They have access to their Romanian legal counsel.
They have access to their Romanian legal counsel for the case within Romania.
Yes.
If this case was to be taken to the international stage, they would...
When it's taken to an international stage, the lawyer who is legally qualified to try it in an international court will be allowed access to them, I'm sure. That's how this process works.
Need access to the international lawyer, which would be this person.
But it's not at the international stage yet.
How does a case go into the international stage? You basically retain someone, they speak to you, you build your case, and then you mount it. What are you talking about? That's literally what happens. So basically, in your mind...
File the suit. File the whole thing internationally. And then we can talk. Then I'm sure at that point they would allow them access to their client or whatever. He isn't even legally her client because she can't represent him in any court of law. Like, maybe he's paying her to give him advice, but there are no court cases in which she's qualified to operate. right now.
And what happens is you only, your retention is only made when you make the application. That's literally not how law works. That's literally not how the system works. What are you talking about?
My guess would be that in the middle
It doesn't
of
matter
you
what your
being
guess is.
Okay, the fact of the matter is in the middle of an investigation for another case, you probably couldn't bring an international case at the very same
Prove
time.
that it's a fact.
I don't know.
Prove that it's a fact.
Prove that yours is a fact.
What? I'm saying prove it's a fact. I've explained to you how the law works. You're saying...
I love it, dude. I love how they frame this up. It's just ridiculous. This guy is absurd on every level.
Is she even retained for an international case right now? Has she filed an international case?
No, of course she hasn't. When that happens, she should be allowed access to her client.
Just explain to you.
Okay, so everything you're saying is an opinion. You have no basis to even believe that she will file an international case. You have no idea about that.
I've just explained to you that there's a reason why that there's a human rights lawyer involved. There's a reason why she's actually stated human rights laws within the public sphere. And what I'm saying is, it could be that they don't file it. The issue is this, because that actually happens. The whole point is she should be having access to her clients to be able to determine if the case is going to be strong enough. Because what if they reveal something to her and then she thinks that's not a good avenue to go? What if they don't?
Right now, she's not his lawyer. She is his advisor, legally speaking. She's allowed to advise him on whatever she wants, but she's not allowed to physically appear there. She can call him and talk to him through the phone system there at the court, but seeing him in person, that is limited to actual legal counsel that is qualified to operate within the bounds of Romania. That's completely different. This guy's acting like there's some kind of persecution happening. It's just bullshit, all of it.
Don't want to go down that avenue, and that's why you need to have access to your lawyers. That's your problem.
I don't think that in every country, I don't think that you can demand to have an international lawyer step in when you're in the middle of a local or a local criminal court proceeding.
In every country, well, not in every country, but in international.
I just googled. It says the right requires the accused to have access to a lawyer at all stages of criminal proceedings, including the initial period of police detention, questioning, and investigation.
Yeah, absolutely, and he has access to his lawyer in Romania, the lawyer that's legally qualified to operate in Romania. If he wanted access to his American lawyer, then she would have to go through the process of passing the bar exam or whatever it is in Romania. You have to be qualified to operate in your jurisdiction. Even state to state, it's really fucking difficult to get qualified to move state to state. You can't just waltz in and pretend to be qualified to operate in this incredibly complex and very different fields, this very different area of law.
Of lawyer, yes, they have that to their Romanian lawyer. But what he's saying is,
there you go.
They also have a U.S. lawyer that they feel should be able to come in and represent them from an international case.
You should have access to all your lawyers. That's
yeah. When an international case is brought, sure. I mean, they can call and talk to him right now if they want. And if they bring an international case, then she should be able to access him physically. It's like they're trying to point out ways in which he's persecuted, and he's simply not persecuted for these things. But they're acting like the entire case is invalid because he's supposedly being persecuted in these ways. Just garbage.
I'm not sure why we're arguing this. Like this, if your argument was this, if my argument was this, they should have access to the international lawyer, Tina, for the Romanian case. You are right. And that's why I never made that argument, because that's
sure. And if you want to make the argument that if they file an international case, they should have access to an international law, then sure, that's fine too. But my understanding is Tina has not been retained to file an international case. Yeah, she might talk about international legal violation or whatever, but of course she's going to say that. She's their lawyer. That's her job. She's supposed to say whatever she can to make them look good. But if she wants to go and actually file an international case, then we would be having a different conversation. If Romanian authorities were saying you can't talk to these people because we've got them in our prisons right now, then that probably wouldn't be okay.
Do you accept that you're going to retain a lawyer and that lawyer can act for you before you make an application?
Sure, and they can talk to their clients all they want. They just can't appear in court for them or physically sit in a room with them in a Romanian prison. That's it. He's free to call them and talk to them to his heart's content. Tell her to file the case for, the international thing or whatever, and then she will be retained legally as a lawyer, and Romania would likely let her in to see him. I don't understand the problem. This guy is literally stupid. Yeah, absolutely agree. KJD or KJ Do Glove or something. Yeah, I appreciate the message there. It's a good point.
Sure, but I don't know if that lawyer should have access to you while you're in foreign prisons.
How can she make an application if she doesn't have access to you? What?
She can call him on the phone. She doesn't have to see him in person for this.
Can't you make a phone call, write a letter?
There you go.
She's gotten statements from these guys.
Write a letter. Come on, man. When you need to talk, so that even a phone call would be access to your lawyer. Like what?
Yes.
So yeah.
Haven't they communicated with her?
Yes, they have.
I don't know about in terms of phone call, but you should be able to have access to your lawyer. So what's the reason?
But how did they retain her if they're not able to communicate with her? Clearly, they have communicated with her. My understanding is she's not allowed into the prison to actually see them. That was the issue that she had. Is she actually? I think she flew to Romania and she went with the Romanian legal team, and they didn't let her into the prison to talk to them face to face.
So again, she should be allowed access because if you're going to
now she hasn't filed an international case yet. If she hasn't filed that case, then
let me explain. She should have access to them because when she goes and sees them in the prison, one of the things that may surmise is because, for example, we don't know if he's in solitary confinement. It could. I never brought it up because we don't know. It could be. It may not be. We don't know the prison conditions. It could be bad. It could be okay. When she goes in and sees them, she'll be able to observe that, and then based on that, if the conditions are bad, if he's in solitary confinement, that's another contravention of international law. You could then mount a more significant.
All of this stuff that he's describing right now, there are proper channels to do this. There are like UN monitors and other people you can send in to check this stuff, to verify it. All he has to tell her is that this is happening, and she can file the case in an international court if that were the problem. There are processes for all of this, and they're desperate to make him out to be like this poor persecuted guy, like, doesn't deserve it. Like, oh my God, he's so mistreated. It's just all nonsense, all of it. It's all complete garbage, top to bottom.
Another additional arguments in the international sphere. So it's imperative that you can have access to your lawyer because that's how you can make that deduction.
Is this a legal fact?
I'm just going to add in.
It is a legal fact,
It says the HR committee has consistently held that the ICCPR Article 14 requires that the accused be granted timely access to counsel unless it can be shown that there are compelling reasons to restrict access.
He has access to counsel. Of course. His Romanian lawyers who are qualified to work in this district. But you see how they're twisting this around to be like something completely different than it is? Like, oh, he's not allowed access to counsel at all because he's not allowed access to some lawyer, some famous lawyer who isn't even qualified to operate in the district. She's free to advise his Romanian lawyers on what to do, but she cannot operate as a lawyer in that district. And she's free to call him if she wants. They just need him to be persecuted. They'll do anything to portray him as being persecuted. It's absurd.
So wouldn't because that kind of backs up what he's saying, no?
Well,
no.
There's unless there's compelling reason to restrict access, right? But a lot
you're
of
a good debater. You're a good debater.
And it's not about being a debater. Every part of the legal system is going to have a lot of discretion, right? Even things you're saying like probable cause or even beyond a reasonable doubt, right?
So if I was going to file, I'm just thinking if I was going to file an international complaint, don't you have to meet with your lawyer?
I don't think they're not going to file an international complaint. That's just what people like him are saying to run defense for him. Nobody's filing an international complaint.
Okay, but
how do you know
I'm
that?
I'm saying hypothetically if he does.
Yeah.
If he wanted to file an international complaint, then I would. If he wanted to file it,
let me go on. So if he wanted to take this to the world stage, don't you think he should be able to meet with his lawyer in order to do that?
If they wanted to legitimately bring a case in front of the EU or whatever, then I think he should have the right.
But you'd say he has to meet with them first, right?
Well,
no, he can talk to them on the phone.
I don't know if he has to meet face to face for that.
You don't think that would be helpful?
I don't know if I don't know what
helpful. Maybe he's allowed to talk to them though. I don't understand the issue here. What's the hang up?
rights are necessarily if I get arrested in let's say that I get a speeding ticket here, right? Let's say that I'm speeding and then I go to jail, right? And I'm in holding or whatever. They haven't processed my stuff yet. Do I have a right to call a U.S. lawyer and say I want him to come here and talk to me face to face because I'm going to file an international case against you guys? I don't know if that right is afforded to you always. Right? My guess is going to be is that during this detentionary period, they probably don't have that right afforded to them because it's during this detention period and before after, or I guess in the state of after, they would have the right to do that. Or if they actually start to face charges or something, if charges are filed against them and now they're held while they're awaiting trial, they probably would. But for this point in time, they probably don't have the right to do it.
That's inaccurate, Destiny. I mean, you are a good debater, but the point is, the issue is this. If you are going to file any kind of a case, irrespective of it's domestic or it's international, you need to have access to your lawyer. For a domestic case, you have access.
They have access to a lawyer through the phone or through letters. And when she files a case, or if she even intends to file a case, if she's even qualified to file an international case, is she allowed to file a case in international courts? If that time comes, then we can cross that bridge. They are obsessed with the idea that he's persecuted when he's simply not.
access to your domestic lawyers. When it's an international case, you have access to international lawyers. When you're given your prison ticket fine, that's a domestic issue, so you'll be access to domestic lawyers. If I was basically, let's say I was, my rights were taken away from me from an international perspective, let's say I was Assanged or something, then I would need access to my international lawyers. So that's literally how it works.
Do you need to see them face to face?
Well, you should be able to see them.
The issue is seeing them face to face before filing, before even creating the case, before even filing the lawsuit or whatever, bringing the case into existence. You don't. Once it's brought into existence, you can see them face to face. Once you actually pay them and they file this stuff, you can see him face to face. They're pretending that he's persecuted when he's just not persecuted. That's just not how any of this works.
Them say face to face.
You need to see them face to face.
I'll explain. Yeah, because for certain things you would need to see them say face to face. Yes, you do, because
have you ever filed a court case in your life? You don't need face to face meeting with a.
There you go.
I'm going to explain to you. I'm going to explain to you.
Yeah.
So in a telephone call, everybody knows it could be tapped. There's a lot of issues.
Yes, absolutely. That's why all you say is, "I want you to file this case." That's it.
That you can have that where you don't want to say on a telephone call. That's why you need face-to-face access, so you can be able to converse, and it's unheard, and you can mount a fair defense. That's the tenet of all legal systems, that you should not have a scenario where you could be self-incriminated. So I'm not understanding why you're not agreeing with this.
Because I haven't seen anything that's showing that this is going to be challenged. I haven't seen anything that's showing this can be challenged in international court.
Do you agree in a telephone call it could be tapped and then that could be a criminal?
Theoretically, it could be.
Sure. And that's why face-to-face is important.
Sure, but you haven't proven that they even have a desire to take this to any international court.
I've just explained to you that they
like, this whole thing is fucking ridiculous and obnoxious, and he's just grasping at straws, doing anything he can to make him out to be a victim when he's just not.
Retained an international lawyer. I've explained to you that she
represents people domestically in the United States.
She does, and she also she is on the UN Council as well, and she has UN.
Is that true? Is she qualified to operate in an international court? I don't know that that's even true. I've learned not to trust a fucking word out of this guy's mouth, honestly.
And positions.
Has she represented any case in front of an international court before?
Well, based on her CV, I would assume there has, but I haven't looked into it.
Okay, so we don't know. Because her last client was like Jussie Smollett, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know what So when you say human rights, that could just be local criminal defense in the United States.
Listen,
right?
But the issue is this: she's talked about the human rights violations, right? She is a human rights lawyer. International human rights lawyer, because you keep on making it sound like it's domestic, and then I've cited certain articles that have been breached. There's possible others could be breached, like solitary confinement, poor prison conditions, which breach European Court of Human Rights. And so, based on that, they should have as you agree, because face-to-face is more important based on tapping and these type of things, what we've already explained. They should have face-to-face contact. If after speaking to them, she doesn't feel like that's a viable defense, or she doesn't feel that's a viable avenue to go, that's fine. But that's the whole reason you retain lawyers. You retain lawyers, they tell you the strengths and weaknesses of going down a certain avenue, and then you make a decision.
Okay,
but they're not being afforded that.
You mentioned international human rights lawyer. Is there like a special license you need to do like international law? Can you?
Yes, you need special licenses for everything, even moving to a different state. Like my wife, if she passed the bar exam in New York, she couldn't operate outside of, I think, 13 different jurisdictions. And this is like the biggest bar exam that you can take, the one that spreads across the most areas. If you want to operate within any other jurisdiction, you have to qualify, or you have to take the bar in that area, basically. It's very, very strict where you're allowed to operate.
You just like pass the bar exam in a state in the United States, and now you can do like international court cases in front of the EU, or is she actually licensed as like an international lawyer?
She is.
I was just gonna
check it out. I'm curious. And then secondly, if we're so paranoid about the telephone call being tapped, couldn't a face-to-face conversation be tapped as well?
That's possible, but then at the same time, it's less likely. Hence, why you have face-to-face, and there's a requirement that you.
If she was actually representing him, then I would want face-to-face access. She isn't. She's his advisor, not his lawyer. The two are different, very different.
So I agree. There is a possibility.
Is it really less likely?
It is less likely. Do you agree?
No.
It is less likely.
I think that if somebody's going to tap a phone call in today's day and age, I'm pretty sure they would just tap the room. It wouldn't surprise me if all of those rooms were recorded. Do you know if is she like an internationally licensed?
It says, and to work as an internet. Oh, you want me to look up the actual?
Oh yeah, I'm just curious if the actual Tina.
Tina, what's her name?
Glandian.
Glandian.
Glan.
Oh, Glan. Yeah.
What a name.
Should we move the argument on or should we carry on?
Let's wait with bated breath.
Cool.
Tina Glandon is a U.S. legal advisor who's a partner. Wait, hold on. So you want to know like what specifically?
I'm just curious if she practices international law because she
does. I mean, you can check it later, but she does.
I'm just Wikipedia. I'm sure it'll say it.
It says she's a U.S. legal advisor who's a partner with a law firm. I don't know how to say this. Gargago.
So it doesn't sound like she's even qualified to operate in international law. So access to him is completely irrelevant.
Make fun of me, Garagos and Giragos.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
People can check that out anyway. It's online, and I think I highlighted it. One of my Summer, I highlighted it in hers. She is.
So do you guys because one of the questions I had was, is Andrew...
Remember, this woman here... Oops, sorry. Remember, this woman here, Just Pearly Things is her name. She is a tater tot to the extreme. She is the biggest Tate lover alive, practically. She's a femcel, so a female incel believer. I don't think she's involuntarily celibate. I think she's married. But she believes in incel ideology, basically.
Because one of the questions I had was, has Andrew Tate snitched on himself and admitted to being guilty in Hustlers University courses? And I know you guys touched...
Yeah, that's what we were looking at earlier. At the very beginning of this whole series that I did on this debate, part 1, I covered him snitching on himself. If you want to go back and see, it's right near the very beginning of part 1. It was this right here, this whole thing. I think we got 5 minutes into it.
Can't do this without...
So, yeah, totally snitched on himself. Absolutely.
Touched on that a bit earlier, but it seemed like you guys almost agree that it could have been in grandeur, but then you kind of were going back and forth.
I personally think he has, but his issue is that hasn't been the evidence that's been brought in front of the court so far. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the prosecution is ultimately going to end up bringing up. Sometimes these investigations start small and they end up sprawling back to a lot of things, but you couldn't convict Andrew Tate based on what he said on social media. That can only be a starting point for an investigation. If you find something, then you maybe bring charges for it, but you can't just convict him based on the course.
Okay, so you guys sort of
agree on that. So, but my only question to you is, Destiny, do you agree that if there's a scenario that what he said online is different to the allegations...
Like, this guy is supposedly a legal expert, a lawyer, but I feel like everything that he's said about Andrew Tate so far is basically the Chewbacca defense. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it was popularized in South Park, I think, making fun of, what's his name, Johnny Cochran in the O.J. Simpson trial. He basically said, you say that my client is guilty, but did you know that Chewbacca was a Wookiee? How do you explain that? You can't explain that. It's like completely irrelevant, unrelated details that are just being tossed out all willy-nilly. And you're framing it up like it's a win, like you just succeeded. You got a W under your belt and proved your client is innocent because Chewbacca is a Wookiee. That's the Chewbacca defense. And that's basically what this guy has done this entire time. In between tossing out random, completely unrelated Romanian statutes like Article 99 and 100C. They're totally unrelated. Have nothing to do with anything at all. This is just one big Chewbacca defense.
That can't be used.
Sorry, let me step back. Listen again.
Do you agree that if there's a scenario that what he said online is different to the allegations, that can't be used?
Hold on. What he said online can never be used against him. That would only be a tool for investigators to...
That's not even really true. There was a court case not too long ago, in the United States at the very least, to determine if rap lyrics can be used against somebody, right? Like, confessions are used in court all the time. And that's basically what Tate was doing, confessing online, publicly. Right? Like, there was a rapper who famously murdered somebody. I don't even remember who it was. Was it Snoop Dogg? I think Snoop Dogg was on trial for murder forever ago. And he talked about murdering this guy. Somebody. It may not have been Snoop. Anyways, he talked about murdering this guy in his song lyrics, and this guy turned up dead. And there's a big thing, like, can rap lyrics be used? Is it an artistic expression or what? It was Snoop's bodyguard. No, not Snoop. Oh, it was Snoop's bodyguard that did it. Okay, for some reason I thought Snoop did it. My mistake. Well, anyway, The point is, I believe in the United States is determined that if you put something in rap lyrics that's basically an admission to a crime, and that crime is objectively proven to have taken place, you can use that as a confession, effectively. Snoop was on trial for it. Okay. Oh, really? But Leia called him a walking carpet. I didn't think his species actually had a name. Yeah, okay, fair enough. All right, let's keep listening.
To further dig into what he said.
So we agree.
The point is you can use it as a confession in some circumstances, in some jurisdictions, some countries, some areas. You most definitely can use what they say on social media. I mean, even Alex Jones had his words used against him. The words that he said publicly on social media. And he claimed that it was a character, and that was, like, disproven. But anyway, you can definitely use this stuff, for sure.
Online stuff is not.
And then you sort of agree on the Psych report, too, right?
I would have to see specifically why she's extrapolating that to the other victims. I don't remember her rationale for why she could make claims about the other person's state of mind.
Okay, so yes or no? So no.
I don't know. I'm agnostic on it right now.
Okay.
Well, you're agnostic that... No, come on.
If you remember earlier, the guy said, oh, you already conceded that point. He didn't. That was just a ploy to make it look like he won the argument when he did not win the argument.
It's not about winning the argument. Destiny, do you think... Let's frame it like this then. Because you like you said, you need to look into it. If I did a psych report...
The psych report's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
On Pearl, based on your statement... Do you think that's
the thing is, I wouldn't trust your interpretation of it, and I've only read articles summarizing
I'm
the
not
psych
saying
report.
that. I'm not saying that.
But I'm not even going to follow the analogy because, like, for instance, the analogy that you made about her trafficking me just because I came here to cam shows that you either have no idea what trafficking is or what. So
I know what
would
trafficking
never
is. You've not proved it. You've not proved it.
So I would never. No one has proved it yet. If it was proven, then he would be convicted.
Exactly.
Right. So in terms of, I would have to. I've only read articles summarizing the psych report. I haven't read the psych report myself. I read the judge arguments.
No, you're not understanding because you don't want to answer it because it basically. Is
I don't want to answer it because
it's a big defeater. No, because it's a defeater because the whole point is this. You're saying you've not looked into it, so you don't have the knowledge about it. I'm saying this happened, and I'm saying that's fine. You may not be able to take my word for it. My question to you is: in the hypothetical where person A is deemed that person, by speaking to person A, you decide that person B has severe mental issues or is brainwashed or whatever it may be. Do you think that's acceptable?
It's irrelevant. And yeah, I think it's fair to make an assessment about a group of people based on not only the psych report, because it's based on more than just that, but also other things, like the fact that other girls got branded with Tate's name. They got his name tattooed on them. And there are a plethora of other pieces of evidence to prove that these people were absolutely brainwashed. It's not just a single psych report about a single girl, and then it's applied broadly to everybody else who ever had contact with it. That's just not how it worked or what happened at all.
Depends on the commonalities that you find between the two.
Right. That's a fair response, I think.
Like,
how would you determine the commonalities?
Let's say you did a psych report on somebody, and let's say that you found that this person worked for Andrew Tate for 5 years. This person had a tattoo saying owned by Tate. This person.
Right. That's what I was saying.
Person was recruited in a similar method, and in talking to them, you realize like this person's ability to even evaluate what's happening. Talk to person A, not B.
Okay.
You talk to person A, and you figure all of that out about person A, and you're like, this person's ability to understand the situation they've been in is severely compromised. And then you look at person B, and you start to find all of those commonalities. Then it might be fair to extrapolate.
How would you know about them commonalities?
I don't know what her method of data collection.
And that's the problem.
Okay.
What's the problem?
Well, that's up to the prosecution to present at trial, I guess. Or
right, exactly.
Present to the judge, yeah.
Yeah. So, again, another problem.
Well, I don't know if it's a problem or not. It depends on if it goes to court or not.
It's a severe problem, bro. Come on.
What are you going
to... This dude is so insufferable, honestly.
Say if this goes to court and all of this evidence plus more is brought in front of the judge?
If this goes...
He's going to pretend he never disagreed with any of it. If he's proven wrong, this is a standard... strategy of Republicans and incels and people on the right in general, I've noticed. They tend to pretend that they were right all along. They tend to completely ignore their false predictions and pretend that they got it right from the very beginning.
Goes to court, and that means there's beyond evidence which is beyond reasonable doubt, and then we look at the evidence and it actually isn't some kind of like, where they're trying to basically do the guys over. Then yeah, I would accept it. I would accept any evidence. So if there's actually unequivocal evidence that these guys have done these crimes, of course we would accept it. That would be ill.
Of course we would accept it. Yeah, I bet.
logical, and you would be basically a stan if you basically said no matter what, it's not. For example,
As if this guy's not a stan.
I didn't agree when a lot of the Tate people were saying the audios were fake because I knew they weren't. But what happened was there was in terms of the Vice piece, but what actually happened was they snipped out the other side of the conversation. So we don't just make arguments for the sake of it. I'm basing it solely on what I'm seeing. And to be honest, it looks like in this whole thing, I know you don't want to accept certain points and you're doing it quite with bated, with that, finding it hard to agree. In reality, we kind of agree on everything. You agree that online stuff can't be used. We agree the Psych report is problematic. We agree right now there's only reasonable suspicion that they need to find more evidence to get it to beyond reasonable doubt. We agree that do you agree that CCTV evidence should be included?
It depends on what charges they want to bring forth.
Do you?
Yeah, the CCTV footage is irrelevant because all that would provide is proof that they were not. That was proof that they consented. It doesn't matter if they consent or not, according to Romanian Statute 214. What matters is that he human trafficked them. Consent is not a relevant part of this charge, which is what he's being charged with, I believe. Section 214. Right. I'm sorry, 211. My mistake. 211. Recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt. No, wait a minute. That's for underage person. I'm sorry, 210 is what I meant. Trafficking in persons, recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons for exploitation purposes by means of coercion, abduction, deception, or abuse of power, taking advantage of the inability of a person to defend themselves, giving and receiving payment or other benefits in exchange for consent, shall be punishable by blah, 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 3 to 10 years. The consent of an individual who is a victim of trafficking does not represent a justifying ground. Consent is irrelevant in this case. Thus, the CCTV footage is irrelevant.
CCTV evidence should be included. Come on.
Depends on what charges they want to
Human
bring forth.
trafficking, that's what the charge
I don't
is.
know if that evidence is dispositive.
Whether it's positive or negative, do you agree that evidence would help find out?
That's why I said I don't know if it's dispositive. I don't know if that evidence would go against claims that they were being trafficked. I don't know if the CCTV encompasses enough of their life and of the entire facility to show that, like, oh, look, they could leave at any time. Were there people leaving the premises that were employed for them, that were going in and out on that CCTV evidence?
Well, why don't they want to include it? There's a reason they don't want to include it.
I'm asking you, was there?
Sorry?
What was in the CCTV footage that you think was so important that needed to be included?
So according to the witness, Jasmine, what is actually shown in the CCTV evidence is that they had freedom of movement, that the girl was basically jogging regularly.
Wait, freedom of movement how?
That, for example, the woman was, one of the victims allegedly was go for runs on her own. So
okay,
part of the evidence
was leaked by the prostitute.
Did he take their passports would be one of my questions. Did he take their passports away from them? And the answer is yes, he did. He took their passports. That means he restricted their freedom of movement, at least to that degree. You need a passport to go anywhere. It's your ID, effectively. And he took it away from them. He didn't allow them to have their own passport in their possession. Seriously. How can you argue anything like this? This guy is a scumbag. I'm sorry.
Prosecution. Part of the evidence that was leaked by the prosecution were text messages saying that they were not allowed to leave the premises. That anytime they wanted to leave, they had to take one of the two bodyguards or the one lady, the police officer, I think the lady. That was one of the text messages.
So that WhatsApp message you're talking about was a snippet. So if you look at it, it was like 3 texts. Mm-hmm. And again, so that's the argument of the Tate team that put the whole WhatsApp in. Because this whole thing, and everybody's seen it in Vice, everybody's seen it in BBC, where you do snippets. You can convict I'll give you the example where I can convict you based on a snippet of you making that comment. The issue is this, that you do the whole piece. So if someone saw your 10-hour podcast, you didn't say that. You were literally saying the opposite. But if I snipped that bit, I could say, you know what, you're a racist. The issue is this, you give the...
Yeah, this is one of Tate's most common defenses, that he's just an honest guy and people keep attacking him for no reason. It's just... Give me a break. You haven't seen all the context. That's the argument that they give.
The whole of the WhatsApp, and then that's how you decide. In terms of the CCTV, what it shows, according to Jasmine, one of the alleged victims who says, I'm not a victim.
Again, consent is irrelevant.
She's saying that it shows that one of the alleged victims, not her, used to regularly jog on her own. That shows freedom of movement. One of the important aspects of human trafficking is...
Just answer this then. Did he take their passports? The answer is yes, he did. He took their passports from them. That is restricting their freedom of movement.
That you don't have...
That's like taking your ID. Do you know what you have to do to, I mean, that is their ID. You know what you have to do or do you know how often you have to use your ID in Europe? You can't move between other European countries, for one thing. You practically can't buy anything. You can't do anything without an ID. Seriously.
Freedom of movement, that breaks. One example of breaking the human traffic allegation, the finances breaks the allegation of human trafficking. The reason I brought these up is because they break the human traffic allegation. So the CCTV, why is it the defense is so adamant it should be included?
Sure. So for finances, I'm pretty sure that I don't know what you're saying, anything for proof of finances. Everything that has ever been talked about or really seems to show that the finances are in control of the Tates. That's what I've heard said over and over and over again. In terms of jogging, Jasmine might have stated that somebody jogged, but I don't know if she said that under oath. I don't know if that's been entered into like an official like witness statement. Now, maybe it will come when they go to the court case where that'll actually be argued about. But my understanding is that I don't think you have to publish every single piece of evidence you have before you go to trial for any country ever. Right?
No. So, do you mean publicly publish or to the
I don't know if you have to publicly publish.
What about to the court?
I imagine for the court, they're probably only pushing as much as they need to.
So for the court, you need to give the evidence, and I've just cited.
You need to give all the evidence?
Yes.
Every piece of evidence you found, you have to give to the judge in order to hold them.
Yeah,
Isn't it just enough to show that you have a reasonable suspicion that your investigation will turn over more?
Because you need to demonstrate to the judge that basically you have got the evidence to demonstrate that what you've got. So in reality, what they need to show is that they've got evidence right now, because that shows that they will be able to get beyond reasonable doubt. Because but the problem is they haven't got the evidence right now. So that's why they're looking for evidence. So
it's complete garbage. That's just a flat out lie. He has no idea what they have. They could have a perfectly solid case right now. In fact, I believe that they do. Based on what they've already released, in my opinion, the case is rock solid against Tate. But they might be looking for more evidence. That's perfectly reasonable. They might be looking to hang him up on even more stuff.
So I don't
need that evidence. We agree that they don't need that evidence, right? You don't need evidence to hold somebody for up to 180 days for that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sorry?
You don't need the evidence to show that beyond a reasonable doubt for that 180 days.
Yeah, I agree with that, because for the 180 days, you need reasonable suspicion. What the judge has said is, when you've given me the evidence, that evidence only amounts to reasonable suspicion. That's the reason they're investigating and looking, unless they're basically violating their rights and keeping them for 180 days to break them before they say, guess what, now we've got new evidence. But in reality, we've seen it. They're doing raids. They're finding new women. Them 4 women that you referred to have just been found very recently. We have to look at their backstory, look at whether it works. So this is not information that they held.
Wow, they're finding more evidence. The monsters, huh?
Onto and then thought, you know what, we're going to use it later. They're looking for evidence. So what the problem is this? They've been looking for evidence for 10 months. And they've only got to reasonable suspicion. They're not given the CCTV.
No, they haven't turned over more than reasonable suspicion. Or they haven't, this guy just doesn't seem to understand how the court system in Romania works, or any court system works. Or he's just lying. He claims to be a legal expert. Either he's lying or he doesn't know. Which is it? I think he's just flat out lying, man.
Evidence, because it's quite clear. Any reasonable person, I know it's your job to debate, so I respect that. You're doing a very good job, because your position, you're starting from a very weak position, so you've done brilliant. But
a weak position. This is ridiculous.
Thing is, the evidence is very clear that it doesn't amount to that level. So when you look at it, there's an issue with CCTV, why they're not putting it. There's an issue with the Psych report. There's an issue with the level of evidence there is. There's an issue in terms of the information that is being leaked to the press, which is snippets. Or the fact that they're not putting the long form of WhatsApp either to the judge or in if they're going to leak it properly. Well, but they're not even including it when they give it to the judge. So I think that all of that demonstrates, and this is the reason why, when looking at all the information and even looking at the specific rape allegations, because we've not gotten into that, but if you look at the story of the US woman, you look at the story of the UK Moldovan woman who's from UK, their stories don't add up. There's a huge problems. There's huge issues with their stories. So even the allegations do not stand up, and hence why the judge said you need more evidence. How are they going to find more evidence? After 10 months where they've not found it, let's be reasonable. We know they're not going to find any more evidence for that.
More evidence is coming out like every day. What's he talking about? They're not going to find more. They find it. Didn't they release more like the other day? Didn't Destiny just bring that up?
A specific allegation. In terms of human trafficking, they've got these allegations. The judge said go back and find some more evidence. Right now, they haven't got that evidence. They may find it, and that's not what I'm denying. But
Dude, this guy's just lying. He's just making shit up right now.
that's what they're looking for. So they're in a race against time to find the evidence. And anybody who's anti-Tate is claiming that, look, we have got the, they're going to go down. But the problem is, as reasonable, rational people who analyze information, the evidence isn't there. And I think, to be honest,
It absolutely is there. You must be joking. This guy is the biggest tater I have ever seen, probably. Aside from the femcel on the other side, Just Pearly Things, the channel owner.
This whole debate, we've come to an agreement about everything. So I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I think that the judge right now feels like there's compelling enough evidence that an investigation.
What do you mean by
is gonna turn up
compelling?
compelling enough evidence that the investigation is going to turn up something that's going to lead to charges. You're not allowed to just hold them there on nothing. So he's seen enough. That's what he's felt. That's why he's denied their repeals repeatedly. And all we can do is wait and see what charges actually get brought against him. But until then, it's all just speculation.
Do you agree there's enough evidence to hold them right now?
Yes, there is enough evidence based on reasonable suspicion to hold them.
But he doesn't like how the Romanian criminal court works.
But
you think that the court is violating international law, right? Because they're not included.
That's just complete BS. They are not violating international law.
But they're not included.
And he still hasn't given us statutes. He gave us Romanian statutes earlier to show that they're violating international law, and those Romanian statutes related to absolutely nothing. So,
including the CCTV.
Yeah, and a few other things. Yeah, and in terms of the reasonable suspicion, another problem is this: that what they've done is to hold them for 180 days is a very extreme measure. You alluded to it.
Well, they're not holding them for 180 days. They're holding them for 30 days at a time to be reviewed at the end of that 30-day period. And so far, I think they've held them for 90 days or something like that. So they can only hold them up to 180. Then they either have to charge them or let them go. And they're going to tack that on to the end. So it's not like he's going to serve that 6 months for nothing. If they finally do charge him, or when they finally charge him, those 6 months are going to count toward his sentence anyways. He's got 15 years more than likely that he's going to be sitting in there.
They are a flight risk. The issue is this. Let's be clear. They're not really a flight risk. And I'll explain.
Are you kidding? He has 12 passports. He specifically moved to Romania to escape these charges in the UK. He is most definitely, absolutely a flight risk. You must be joking.
Explain why, but this is opinion, so you have a fair argument against me if you want to. So this is not, because I've been citing law. So the reason for my argument is this: they went for a very extreme measure. They could have went for house arrest. They could have put a tag on them. They wouldn't be able to leave the country. Let's be clear: if there's some kind of like James Bond type people where they can destroy the tag, they can get someone to break them out, they can get someone to help them leave the country. That is easily possible even in prison. But in reality, these men have clearly shown that they want to exonerate themselves in the Romanian system because they want to respect the country and respect the laws. And
okay, that's BS. They haven't clearly shown any of that. But you know what they have clearly shown? An interest in escaping charges. They have explicitly said that they moved to Romania to escape UK charges. Like, how does it get clearer than that? They are a flight risk with 12 passports. He said, if I get charged in Romania, I'll move to Nigeria. If I get charged in Nigeria, I'll move to somewhere else. He's said these things openly.
Believe they're innocent.
Why couldn't they just get in a car and drive away?
Because they're going to be tagged.
What, they want to tag? Don't they? Doesn't he have like 32 cars? Are they going to tag all?
Not anymore. His Bugatti is gone. It's property of the court now. Funny enough.
All of them?
No. They'll put a tag on him, so they'll be able to monitor his movement.
What do you mean by tag on him?
There'll be like a tag, won't they? They'll put like a tag on the leg, isn't it? So that you can basically would know where he is at all times.
Oh, like an
ankle monitor.
An ankle monitor.
Yeah. So you have that, and then you can have security there as well. You can have many things in place to ensure that they don't leave. And to be honest, look, we know the level of wealth they've got. If they wanted, they could have got out anytime, any place. This is my opinion. And so, and the same argument is for prison and the same argument is for house arrest. If you believe that they can get out in both scenarios, the argument is essentially very similar.
Well, if you feel like there's an international law violation, why would you go back to a country that you feel like is violating international law to stand trial there?
Because it's a lot easier to get away with R word there. That's specifically what Tate said. I'm giving you word for word what he said. He wanted to move to Romania because it was a lot easier to get away with, R-wording somebody or whatever.
I never understood your point.
Well,
I never understood your
now
point.
you're making this argument that they want to exonerate themselves in the Romanian system. Well, in that case, then I guess we should just let them do the 180 days or whatever the judge feels like.
No, I explained to you that what they've done is an extreme measure. So therefore, what they should...
It's not an extreme measure. It's standard practice. Now, you can argue this shouldn't happen to Tate, but it absolutely should. You can argue it shouldn't happen to anybody, or it shouldn't happen to people without, strong evidence or whatever. And that's fine, but there is strong evidence for Tate. So, yeah, he's guilty as far as I can tell. There's tons and tons of evidence against Tate right now.
Be doing is they should be getting a house arrest with an ankle monitor to ensure that they don't leave the house. They can have security there, whatever it may be, but they're going to be tracking their movement. So the only way they do it is if they break out, they run away, and then they're basically on the run. And for someone like Andrew Tate, this is my opinion, who's a global megastar, who relies on not being on the run, who relies on his brand, he would basically kill his brand. And so
what if it was the case that he was actually guilty of everything charged? Wouldn't it make sense for him to run?
Well, if he was guilty of everything charged, they could probably break him out of prison. If he has the level of...
What? If he was charged and guilty, then they could probably break him out of prison. What? What is that?
Of power that is the level of money, the level of power.
Hire an armed militia to go in.
Well, how is he going to break out? Is he James Bond? How is he going to take his ankle monitor and run away and get out through security?
Taking an ankle monitor off is probably a lot easier than getting a crew to break you out of prison. That'd be my guess.
It is probably easier, but at the same time, it's not easy. So the whole point is both are acceptable measures. The reality is why they're really holding him is. It's not because of prison. It's not because of ankle monitor, because you can't keep him in a home. And that's a fair balance you can have and keep him at home and ensure that he's on the run and he'll have to exonerate himself in the Romanian system or be on the run for the rest of his life. In reality, the court has alluded to it. The reason they don't want him out is because they don't want him to speak. Because if he speaks publicly and...
Okay, that's complete nonsense. They alluded to it? In what way did they allude to that? I haven't heard a word about that. They're not trying to prevent him from speaking. What?
Says, guess what, these allegations are wrong, and he's a very influential speaker. They know that may make the Romanian system look bad, so hence why they said we want to ensure that the respect of the judicial system remains in the eyes of the people. So
this is just complete garbage. All of this is just made up.
That's actually, in my opinion, why they are not letting him out.
Okay, well, his opinion has no facts to back it up, so.
Do you agree with that or disagree?
No, I don't think so.
Why do you think it is then?
Well, I think they have a process that they follow. I think he's probably a flight risk. The guy's got a lot of money. He's made a lot of statements about breaking out of the prison system, bribing people in the prison system, or just driving away or whatever. He talks about all his passports. They probably think he's high probability for flight risk. The charges are really serious. So in the Romanian...
But you said those, you can't be used in court, right?
What can't be used in court?
Didn't you say earlier that the social media stuff can't be...
you can't convict somebody. You can't convict somebody in court. But in terms of trying to figure out if somebody's a flight risk or not, I think the judge himself has alluded to the videos of him bragging
which
about
again isn't that unacceptable though as well? Another point. So first of all, the bribing point you made. You said bribing people in the prison system. He's in the prison system. He couldn't bribe them. So again, is another example where he was trying to act street, saying, "Oh, I'm going to bribe this man, bribe that man." But in reality, he's in prison. He's not bribed anyone.
Yeah, but you don't know if he...
Yeah, this is reasonable suspicion. It's totally fair to keep somebody in there. And you know what? It's not just based on what he said either. Again, he has 12 passports. Who needs 12 passports? Who even has that many passports? Who has citizenship in those many countries? That's crazy, dude. You only really need that many passports. Generally, people only, in my opinion, only ever feel like they need those many passports if they worry that they might have to flee to another country at some point in the near future. Seriously.
If he was serious or not, he might have tried. You have no idea.
Well, he might have tried, but it's failed, hasn't it? So
but is that a count against him?
But that's an example about the prison system. But we're saying house arrest. So your defeat was about the prison system, not about the house arrest. The second point was in terms of passport. Again, another problematic issue. They said the judge, the court system. They took his video from where he says, "I've got so many passports," wherever it is. That, again, for me, is unacceptable. Why would you take a video where he's saying, "I've got so many passports," and use that as a judgment to say that, that he's a flight?
Well, if he actually has that many passports, it's a problem, and he does, as it turns out.
Does he have multiple passports?
And you've asked
There you go.
very important question. And that's the question that should be asked. Does he have multiple passports?
Yes, they took pictures of them when they raided his house. They took pictures of all the passports sitting out there on a table and all of the guns, which, to my knowledge, it's super against the law in Romania to own that many guns and those types of guns, I believe. You can look up pictures of all of Tate's passports.
Contact embassies and find out if he's got them. That's what a legal system is meant to do.
Well, have they done that?
No, because they've said in the court systems that they've just used the video on social media.
In the Romanian,
so again,
you mean for Romania, they have no idea how many passports he's got?
Yes, they do. There are pictures of them.
According to the court documents, right now, they've based it solely on social media.
Have they said that they only went on the social media, or was that a
bullshit
leading thing that they used and upon further investigation found out he did have like 4 or 5 different passports?
They said they used social media to make that decision. They did not say anything about contacting embassies and find that information out. So yeah.
So they didn't say anything about contacting embassies. That's his whole thing. But like I said, they found the passports at his house when they raided it. So yeah, that argument is just blown to pieces just like that. This guy has no idea what he's talking about.
That was the basis.
Okay. Well, I don't know if they've contacted embassies to find out, but I think that there's a lot of information you can use to determine if somebody's a flight risk. That's not going to be something that's like completely and totally beholden to like a probable cause or beyond or whatever reasonable doubt thing. Like these are decisions that judges make. It's probably not going to be perfect or consistent in every case, but I mean, for people that have like a ton of money that are accused of charges that would be like incredibly with extreme gravity, I imagine that you're probably in most cases going to detain people like this. That would be my guess.
So my problem is this: you said that they're probably not. It's not perfect or not consistent. My argument is they should be consistent. So therefore, based on consistency, these guys should be on a house arrest as opposed to being in prison.
Every criminal justice system in the world is going to operate on some level of discretioncy, especially when we're talking about being consistent. When it gets to cases of this magnitude, you may only have a handful that ever happen in all of humankind, right? Like this is probably a really unique case. I don't know if anybody's one-to-one.
I find it interesting that Destiny just slipped up and said all of mankind and then corrected himself and said all of humankind. I don't know of anybody who cares if you say all of mankind, personally. I don't think it's really that big of a deal, but apparently he felt like it was important enough that he reverse course mid-sentence, mid-word, and step back and change the word that he was using. That's really interesting to me, that he seems to put that much value on it. Weird, right?
In comparison of a guy that did online.
Like, I don't know if you saw like parts 1 or 2 or which one we're even in now, but as far as I can tell, Destiny is actually, he's historically been very left-wing, very progressive. But he said some stupid shit that he really shouldn't have said. And instead of coming out saying, I'm sorry, I'll take the L, I apologize, I shouldn't have said that, it was wrong, I was wrong to even think that. Instead of doing that, he doubled and tripled down and cut out any progressive friends that he had before that who criticized him for it. He cut them out of his life and replaced them with right-wing nutcases and has, like, Nazis on his program all the time. He debates them, but he's super friendly with them and helps people, like, kind of build their brand and be friendly with them and stuff, rehabilitates their reputation. I'm not a fan of how Destiny does things. He's a great debater. He stands for progressive causes, but he rehabilitates the right, like, entirely too much. So, anyway.
Line had women, and then everything else is going on. I don't even know what consistency would mean. It's probably a one-of-a-kind case.
So in terms of what my position is, so if you can answer this, my point is this. My view is this, that prison is an extreme measure. You could still succeed in your point because part of the Romanian system is that the 180 days can be preventative where he has house arrest. Do you agree that that would be an acceptable way of making sure that you don't go to extremities?
No, not for Tate. Tate specifically, his case is being treated just fine. He deserves to be where he is because he has 12 passports and he has expressed an interest in fleeing countries to any other number of countries if he's ever convicted or charged or whatever other thing. So yeah, this is totally fair for Tate.
And basically show that you're not out, at least there's some kind of balance in the system. So you.
Would I trust house arrest? I mean, if it was my call, I would probably arrest. If somebody had that much money, that much like opportunity, I think you
and expressed an interest in it,
would probably just arrest them. Because getting around an ankle bracelet or something.
What does arrest mean?
As in, like, detain them somewhere, not like give them an ankle bracelet and hope they don't flee the country somehow.
So that's where we disagree.
Well, do
because
we all agree here that if Andrew
But that's
Tate
opinion,
wanted to,
so, yeah.
but if Andrew Tate wanted to fool an ankle bracelet and leave the country, could he do that?
hypothetically, he could do that. Hypothetically, he could probably break out of prison. But hypothetically speaking, but in
What would
reality,
be easier though?
But it would be easier for ankle bracelet. But in reality, he won't do that because he won't want to be on the run for the rest of his life.
I don't know. Well, we don't know that though.
No, we know that because if
You
he's,
know that because you're assuming he's innocent. But
No,
if he's
no, no, no,
actually
no.
guilty
Even
of
if
everything
he's-
he's done,
No,
he
no.
would want to be on the run for the rest of his life because he might go to jail for 30 or 40 years.
because the problem is, even if you're guilty or innocent, if guilt is equal so if let's say if he's found guilty and he's on the run, or it's almost the same because he loses everything. The only difference is that you're in prison, which is obviously much worse. But my point is, so for him, when we look at the evidence, it would be silly to go on the run. It would be ridiculous because you're basically giving up everything.
Yeah, but he doesn't know. Well, we don't know what he's done. Neither of us do. If he's actually guilty of this and more, then it would make sense for him to.
Well, we don't
right?
know as a matter of fact. So you're talking about certainty, philosophical certainty, but in reality, what we know is based on the evidence. The evidence
this has nothing to do with the evidence.
No.
What I'm saying is that if Andrew Tate, you agree, I think we would all agree here. If Andrew Tate, if he knew it,
In his
we
mind.
don't know this. We don't know this. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know this.
Hypothetical,
Okay?
hypothetical.
But hypothetical. If he had done all of this, he literally had a text group called the Lover Boy Recruiters, and he did all of it, and he 7 women more than have even cut. If he did all of that,
Yeah.
and now the Romanian people are breathing down his neck, he'd probably rather move to Russia and live there as a poor person than go to jail for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and I don't think he would be poor either. He's probably got some money stashed away, or he would find some way to make some back or whatever other thing. He wouldn't be poor if he managed to skip country.
I think that's fair.
If he definitely did that, that would be.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Somebody made a good point. Robert Adsett, really good point. He could run to Afghanistan. They've already expressed concern. Absolutely right. The Taliban has called for his release and said, this poor guy is being mistreated. Release him now. The Taliban, okay? So, yeah, he could always go to the Taliban if he wanted and live in Afghanistan.
Fair, but evidence doesn't suggest that. What the evidence suggests is that argument's weak. If anybody's in his position,
Okay, the evidence does suggest that, and even this guy's admitted it suggests that. What he means is the evidence in a court of law has not conclusively, beyond reasonable doubt, proven that yet. But he's using these words interchangeably. He's using them a little freely.
based on that.
Because he's a tater tot. He's a, what do you call it? He's a fanboy. Do anything to defend Andrew Tate.
Evidence and data that we have in front of us, it would be silly to run. So therefore, how's the rest would be more
Sure,
acceptable
but I'm
measure.
saying the judge doesn't know that, right?
No, the judge knows the evidence. So the judge knows the information.
The judge doesn't know if he actually committed the crime or not, though. If he didn't commit the crime, then it makes sense that he would stay, because he would stay, he would fight in the court system, he would win.
Yeah.
But if he did, and the prosecution was just, 1 inch away from uncovering something horrible, then he's probably going to run.
But the judge never makes his decision based on what he thinks that the person thinks that he would have done. The judge makes his decision based on the evidence that he has in front of him, and based on the evidence he has in front of him.
No, okay. He's talking about what a judge decides things, or how a judge decides things based on, for the trial, like the final results in the trial. But judges absolutely make decisions based on what he thinks people are thinking in any moment when it comes to, is he going to jail them because they're a flight risk, or a number of other things. Like, judges definitely use intuition for a lot of this stuff, and rightfully so, because they don't know if you're a flight risk or not. They have to make assumptions about this stuff until the trial goes through, right?
Him, it's very weak, and so based on that, one would surmise that this person.
It's not very weak. He keeps saying that it's not weak. The evidence is not weak. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, check me out on Patreon. And let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the comments. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.